Good morning, everyone. My name is Viren Rasquinha. I'm the former captain of the Indian hockey team, currently the director and CEO of not-for-profit organization Olympic Gold Quest. Um, uh, Before starting the session, I just want to say a very big thank you to Sports Authority of India for starting this wonderful initiative of a speaker series from various experts in different aspects of sport. It's been some fascinating insights over the last 2 weeks from so many experts, and today I am going to be discussing on a topic about the ecosystem of an elite athlete. Uh, Before we get into that, I remember quite a few years back, I was talking to the Australian great hockey player and former hockey coach, Rick Charlesworth. And Rick always told me that, within most meetings and sessions take almost 1 hour to one and a half hour. And in his opinion, meetings and sessions should not be more than 40 minutes long because after that, everyone's attention span went downhill. So, in adherence to that, I'm going to try and keep my session to around 35 to 40 minutes. And after that, I'm going to open it out to various queries and questions from all of you all. So please do keep the questions flowing in. Uh, so let's get back to our topic, ecosystem of an elite athlete. Um, I've had the good fortune in having had the opportunity to play with the Indian hockey team at the highest level of sport. I played at the Athens 2004 Olympics. And when I look back over the years, I think I was really lucky to have a very good ecosystem for me growing up. Uh, and I hope that I can share some of those insights and experiences with you over these next 60 minutes. So let's start with the most important ingredient in the ecosystem of an elite athlete. And I've actually chopped down 20 points that go into making that ecosystem. There may be more as well that I may have missed, but these are some of the more important ones that I felt are very relevant to most athletes, coaches, and people involved in preparing athletes at the highest level to represent India. So, point number one in that ecosystem is the coach itself. Of all the ingredients that go into the mix of building world champions, Olympic champions, I think the coach is the single most important ingredient. I don't know of a single athlete who has gone on to achieve at the highest level who did not have a quality coach working behind him or her. Um, I myself, at various levels, had different coaches training me, and I like to add here that it's just not the one coach who say is our coach at the highest level, at a senior level, that is important, but every coach along the way that is important. It may be the grassroots level coaches, it may be the intermediate coaches, it may be the elite level coaches. Each one of them has a role to play, and each one's role is very important. So, growing up, I remember when I was in school, I was in St. Stanislaus High School in Bandra, and my school had a tradition and culture of playing hockey, and we were lucky to have a big hockey field as well. It was a grass ground at that point of time. And my coach at that time was a hockey Olympian who played at the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics, Marcellus Gomes. And really at that point of time, in the very impressionable age for me, 12, 13, 14, 15, Marcellus Gomes taught me everything that I knew at that point of time. And when I think back, if it was not for Marcellus Gomes, there was no way that I would have gone on to play for India. And there were so many coaches along the way. When I reached junior India, there was Harinder Singh, C.R. Kumar, Clarence Lobo. There was Bansalji, who was my coach at Indian Oil Corporation. There was the Olympian Daryl D'Souza, who was my coach in Air India. Clarence Lobo coached me at Tata. So I had so many coaches along the way. And then when I went to the senior Indian team, there was Cedric D'Souza, Bhaskaran, Rajinder Singh Senior. So I learned so much from so many of these coaches. And the interesting part was that every coach had a different style of functioning, every coach had a different method of coaching. But I always try to take the good points from various coach and use those points to mold me into a better player. So like I said, the coach is the one who not just prepares the plans and programs, but he's really the one who implements everything. He's the one who gets all the stakeholders together to ensure that the best possible plans are put in place for the athlete. Point number two in the ecosystem, I think, extremely important is the actual physical infrastructure and location where athletes are training. I remember when I was part of the Indian team in both my junior and senior days, most of the national training camps were in Sai Kingeri in Bangalore. And if you look at Sai Kingeri, Bangalore today, the infrastructure there is improved by leaps and bounds. When you look at infrastructure for an elite athlete, you want the right venue, you want the right location, the right climate. You want to see that there's the right facilities, the right equipment, and preferably all training facilities under one roof. So just not the actual training pitch or courts or say a boxing ring, a wrestling mat. You also want the accommodation, you want food, you want medical facilities, you want a gym, you want a swimming pool, recovery facilities. If everything is under one roof, that would have been the ideal scenario. And I'm glad to say that in the last decade, if you look at the various Sai centers across the country, a lot of private facilities have also come up over the last couple of years. You have the JSW facility in Bellary, you have the Padukone Dravid Center for Sports Excellence in Bangalore. I think they have simply marvelous class facilities, and it's good that athletes are getting exposure to much better venues and facilities. I think things like climate play a major role when you're training, especially for outdoor sports. So, take for example archery. It's very hard to train for archery when it's extremely cold in the north of India during winter, especially for morning training sessions when the temperature goes down to less than 5 degrees, and you're out there in the open field trying to do archery. So, I think the right venue, the right locations are very, very important. Obviously, gym facilities to ensure equipment is up to date. They're running in good conditions. These are the little things that make a difference, because at the highest level of sport, it is really the 1%ers that make a difference. If we get 1% better in each and every aspect, I think cumulatively the our elite athletes will progress much more. Point number three is the physiotherapist. I think increasingly physiotherapy is playing such a major role in sport, where fitness levels are going through the roof and recovery is getting more and more essential. So at the highest level, you want the physiotherapy team to be experienced. You want them to be well qualified. You want them to have a good temperament. Um, you want them to have experience in dealing with senior athletes. They should be able to take the rough and tough life of national camps. It's very different from being a good physio in the clinic and being a good physio on field. Because on field is a very tough life, and you want your physios to be there every single day, every single session, experiencing what the athletes go through. And I think a good physio would be able to a large extent, prevent injuries with a lot of with assessments and day-to-day work. A very important aspect is to monitor daily wellness, uh, wherein we can understand if an athlete is going towards injury, maybe due to over training, or you want to help them to help in load management, in enhancing the quality of movement, really. I think physios play such an important role in recovery of athletes, especially in the physical sports. But really, every sport of physio is very important. I would also add here, in good medical facilities, we should have doctors on call, especially for some of the most common injuries that we face. I would say back, ankle, knee, shoulder. These are some of the most common injuries that face even ENT problems. Good doctors should be on call so that uh, the speed of service to the athlete is very quick. The next I would go is to the trainer, and again, I think you want trainers who are very up to date with latest training methods. The trainer should be able to do regular, measurable assessments for the athletes and inform the coach on increasing and decreasing loads. There are different loads that you give to an athlete during off season when you're closer to competition, and I think the trainer has a very essential role to play. I would add here understanding the nature of the sport is very, very important. Take, for example, different physical sports like hockey, badminton, boxing, wrestling. In all these sports, you need to be physically extremely fit, but the nature of training for every sport is different. Every sport has unique skill sets as far as with physical parameters are concerned. So if you look at hockey, if you look at football, you need a lot of endurance. If you look at badminton, you need to be very quick over a short period. So your agility has to be really good over a 5 to 10 meter area. Being able to lunge, being able to recover back on your movements in boxing and wrestling also. In boxing today, there are 3 rounds of 3 minutes each. That's 9 minutes. Wrestling is 2 rounds of 3 minutes each. That's 6 minutes, and it's really a sprint. It's and you got to be bang 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 on it from the first second until the final whistle. So I think the skill sets of different sports are different. It's very important for the physical trainer to understand the specific natures and unique skill sets to every sport. Point number 5, I would go to the nutritionist. Uh, I think diet is playing an increasingly important role in modern sport, and we've had some excellent sessions by Ryan Fernando on the various aspects of diet. I'm no expert in that, but just from an athlete point of view, what I would say out there, in my advice to players, coaches, nutritionists, is to just ensure that the diet is simple, practical, and implementable. Very often, I see nutritionists giving very complicated diets, which on paper theoretically is very good, but the key thing is to be able for the athlete to implement the diet, and availability of those supplements and food is very, very critical. Right options for elite players, they're traveling a lot on tour. I think the right options while traveling abroad, especially on tour, is very critical. More so for vegetarians. More than 50% of the elite athletes in India are vegetarian. And I remember growing up, for me, I've seen a lot of the hockey players on tour, especially the vegetarians, really almost living on fruits, salads, and bread. And honestly, that's not the ideal diet, especially in a hard physical sport. Natural food is obviously the best, but supplements are definitely required for especially power sports like wrestling, boxing, hockey today as well, where recovery is essential. I would like to advise all athletes and coaches, please do not overdose on supplements without the right advice from the right professionals. Um I think regular quarterly blood tests are very important also, and supplements prescribed accordingly. At OGQ, we're trying to do a lot of blood tests, quarterly blood tests with all the athletes, and I think we have seen a lot of trends coming out with a lot of deficiencies in most of the even the elite athletes. I think the one biggest deficiency is vitamin D, and that's especially for female athletes, and that's something that can be corrected. Also in weight-based sports, where you have to either cut weight or put on weight, I think the right nutrition is very important. If the right nutrition program is there, it helps. It ensures that we cut weight or gain weight without affecting the performance, and it also ensures that we improve muscle recovery. I think one of the best examples here are Mary Kom in her weight category. Mary Kom currently fights in the 51 kg weight category in boxing. Initially, Mary won her first three world championships in the 46 kilo weight category. I think the fourth one she won in 48, and thereafter she's won all the medals in 51 weight category. I may be a little bit wrong over here, but more or less, Mary was initially a 46 kg boxer, and today she's fighting at 51 kilos. So it's very important for the nutrition program to put on the right kind of weight. In other examples, say Ravi Kumar in wrestling, where Ravi fights in the 57 kgs. Ravi has recently won the quota for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. And Ravi's body weight in normal training, where he's say 1 month away from a competition, is around 60 to 61 kilos. So again, the right diet, the right supplements are very critical to help Ravi come down the weight categories. And I'm sure many coaches out there face same issues with their athletes, and I think having the right nutritionist working with the athlete is very critical. Point number six, I would go to the sports psychologist. I think this is one of the biggest gap areas in Indian sport, and it's going to get wider over the next decade. The role of the sports psychologist is getting more and more important. I see the need and acceptability has been gradually increasing. Previously, until the time I was playing a decade back, the coach was really the whole and soul of everything. He was the coach, he was the trainer, physio, nutritionist, even the sports psychologist. But today, I think sports psychology is playing a more and more important role over here, and it's a very specialized field. I would like to say here that winning the trust of the athlete is a very key ingredient, and we really need to develop good Indian sports psychologists. I emphasize on the word Indian because it's still okay with foreign coaches, foreign physios, foreign trainers. But when it comes to a sports psychologist, uh, uh, I think the language and understanding culture plays a very critical role over here. Uh, uh, so and when I say that, because as a psychologist, you're going to be discussing very personal, very intimate details with an athlete, and to be able to understand the challenges faced. And another crucial element is this is for the psychologist to actually be present in training sessions, and here again understanding the nature of the sport, understanding the nature of the challenges that every individual athlete faces. So, take for example badminton. The challenges faced by Saina would be very different from the challenges faced by Sindhu. Though both of them play in women's singles badminton events. So, understanding those unique challenges is very critical. I think it's also important for the sports psychologists to actually travel on tour with athletes, because most of the challenges actually crop up during competition, and understanding the pressures faced during competition, the day before an important match, the 1 hour leading up to an important bout. I think those challenges are very critical, and I like to repeat what I said earlier. These are the one percenters that sometimes make the difference between participating and actually winning. Point number seven is the video analyst. Uh, video analysis is another area where India has been a little bit behind the curve. I remember in a sport like hockey during my playing days, some of the advanced hockey playing nations of Australia, Holland, Germany, at that point of time had top quality video analysts. Um And for India, video analysts did come into the picture a decade back, but I think the quality of analysis was not really good. I remember us video recording an entire match, and then when we had time off, we would see the entire match, but it was not really broken up for the athlete. The video analyst did not understand hockey really well. There was no coordination with what the coach wants. When I went to Germany to play for a year in the Bundesliga, I actually understood what a difference quality video analysis makes. There, the video analyst was worked at extreme speed, understood hockey very intimately, worked in tandem with the coach, broke up videos into 2 3 minute clippings, and every hockey player was made to see only what he needed to see. And it really helped tremendously in knowing what to expect in a match. It helped us understand the very specific strengths and weaknesses of your opponents, and the mistakes that we were making before. So I think that played a big role. Uh, I think over here, also one more point that we should add is the quality of software, and to a large extent, budgets determine that. It goes without saying that the video analyst must be very comfortable with the software, because the software will throw you 1,000 parameters. But the key thing is to be able to use those 5 6 parameters that will create impact for the players and the coach. I'd just like to go back to one point on the physical trainer, where I would like to merge it with the sports scientists, especially on taking regular physical assessments and tests, and to monitor them effectively to check regular fitness levels of athletes. I think the one grouse with coaches and athletes versus the sports scientists is that there is a big gap between what is done in the lab and what is implemented on the training field. So it's, I think, very important to bridge that gap. And I think a big role needs to be played, that testing is reflected then in training. So we keep on improving based on tests here. So the sports scientist has a very important role to play. We have had some wonderful sessions by Dr. Nikhil Latte, by Shrikant Iyengar, by Wayne Lombard, David John. I think these people are the best people in the country on physiotherapy, physical training, sports science. So they understand, and we all need to work together to bridge that gap. The next point number 8 in our ecosystem, I would like to say, is the quality of campers and sparring partners. When you're getting a bunch of elite athletes training together, it's very important to maintain a very high intensity of training, ensure that there's no complacency, get quality and consistent sparring, be it wrestling, be it boxing, be it badminton, be it hockey matches. Ensure that there's healthy competition. So for boxing, you want sparring partners that are orthodox, that are southpaws, primarily left-handed punchers. You want taller opponents. You want shorter opponents. I was reading a fascinating article on one of the reasons why Amit Pangal is doing so well in men's 52 kgs, because he's really short for that weight categories, and most of the world's top boxers in that weight category are actually not used to dealing with someone of the short stature of Amit. So in training, you really want different kinds of opponents with different styles. And I remember for hockey, you want your goalkeepers to train against quality drag flickers every single day in training. And one of the weak areas for Indian hockey over the years for our goalkeepers was actually facing quality drag flickers, because drag flicking is a very unique skill. It is an extremely difficult skill, and India has very few quality drag flickers. So back in the day, there was Jugraj Singh, there was Sandeep Singh, there was Raghunath, but after that, there was no one. And only the 3 or 4 goalkeepers who were in the Indian camp actually got to train against these quality drag flickers. The rest of the goalkeepers in the country never even got to train against quality drag flickers, and they found it really tough when they faced top class drag flicker. So it's very important to ensure that the quality of the camp is maintained. All the campers, sparring partners are at a very, very high level. Point number nine is junior athletes at an elite level. All athletes at some point of time went to the junior stage, be it Mary Kom, be it Sushil Kumar, be it Saina Nehwal, be it Sindhu. And it is, I cannot stress on the importance to ensure that our most talented young junior players are put under the right processes in place when they are young. Because when you are at that, like I said earlier, the impressionable age of 12, 13, 14, 15, that is the time when you form habits. Now, habits can be good habits or bad habits. And it's very important to ensure that they form good habits while playing. And another important habit is to ensure that young players do not lose the joy of training and make trainings fun, because when we start them at 11, 12, 13, it's going to be 10 to 12 years before they maybe eventually go to the Olympics. That's a long time of very formal training. So it's very important that the joy of training is not taken away. And a suggestion here to coaches to make training sessions as fun as possible. I'm going to touch upon that a little bit later. Again, I just like to say uh, that the junior period, especially 17 to 22 or so, is an age group where we need to be very patient, because that is a very crucial transition period. Not everyone transitions successfully, and some people mature later. I think Sindhu and Saina started winning at a very early age. By 16, 17, they were winning senior international tournaments. But I think a good example of someone who matured later was Shrikant. Who Shrikant took a little bit time to mature. He was actually a doubles player right at the start. He didn't get the best results in his junior days, but he went on to become world number one. So I think patience during the junior period is very, very important. Point number 10 in the in the ecosystem is training under pressure. uh, I think again, crucial for maintaining quality, intensity, and seriousness of training sessions. Because the golden rule over here is that if you cannot do it in training, then it's going to be extremely hard to do it in the match. I'll take the example of a hockey striker over here. My biggest problem with training sessions in India is that we do not maintain a very high intensity. So, take for example a center forward in hockey. In training, they receive the ball under no pressure. They're able to turn, take their time, and then take a shot at the goal. While in reality, in a match against a big, strong European or Australian defenders, you will never ever get that time. Everything happens in split seconds. You have to be smart enough to take decisions quickly, and think and make the right decision under pressure in a split second. So I request all coaches in every sport, it's okay if you keep training sessions shorter as opposed to longer. In India, we have training sessions that are 3 hours and 4 hours. I've trained abroad in Germany and Australia. And the one thing I liked about training sessions, that they were never more than an hour and a half, but they literally kill you in the training sessions. The load, the intensity, the quality was far more than even what you would experience in the match. And that really helped you deal with the pressures of match situations better. So many people say that you have to do something 10,000 times before you get really good at it. I would say it's okay to do it 1,000 times, but do it 1,000 times in under a very quality, high intensity and pressure backed training environment. Point number 11 is, I think, fun training sessions. Very, very critical to make training sessions fun and enjoyable. I remember, for me, I started playing hockey for fun. I played gully hockey in the lanes of Bandra, and I enjoyed it. I never even dreamt that one day I would go on to play for India. I would play at the Olympics. Uh, The best coaches always innovate and ensure that training sessions are not too repetitive and boring. Repetition in training has its advantages, but beyond a certain point we always need to innovate. I think something that helps here is to ensure that athletes can make decisions on their own rather than spoon feeding them all the time, because we must remember that when the athlete steps across those white lines and goes to play, they're going to have to play on their own and make decisions on their own. We cannot be spoon feeding elite athletes all the time. Uh, in elite athletes, the best players have the quality of really adapting to changing scenarios. And one of the things we can do to make training more fun, more better, is to help athletes themselves sometimes design training sessions. Athletes have to be brave enough and smart enough to take decisions on their own. I remember C.R. Kumar, my first coach in the junior India hockey team. He always said, "Do not ensure that you guys. It's okay to make mistakes, but make some new mistakes. Do not repeat mistakes." I think elite athletes, whether junior levels, senior level, have to learn very quickly from mistakes. So coaches out there, it's okay if athletes make mistakes, but it's not okay if they repeat mistakes. Allow athletes to design their own drills, take feedback, and do not spoon feed them at all times. I think that the best coaches are those that help athletes to think on their own. Point number 12 is about rest and recovery. I think Shrikant Iyengar and Nikhil Latte touched upon this, and I cannot emphasize more on the importance of rest and recovery. Um, I would say that rest and recovery is actually as important as training itself, and it's actually one of the most neglected areas in Indian sport. Almost all athletes across the board today are overtrained, and with the result that when we actually approach a major tournaments or Commonwealth Games, Asian Games, World Cups, World Championships, Olympics, most players are actually jaded and tired, when actually you should be fresh, hungry, and raring to go. So the coach, the physical trainer, the sports scientist, the physio, they have a very, very important role to play to ensure that there's adequate rest and recovery for the athletes, and they are not being overloaded and overtrained, because the chances of injury then start multiplying. Point number 13 is promptness of support to the athlete. At the highest level of sport, it's just not the quality of training that is important, but something that is equally important is the speed of support. And I think I would like to give the example of two areas here that is very important, where one is dealing with injuries. Say Sindhu or Mary Kom or Saina get injured, or a Vinesh Fogart get injured. It's it's no use getting them to the best specialists and doctors after 2 weeks. We have to ensure that the best possible medical attention is given to them within 24 hours. So in injury management, speed has a very critical role. I would also say in terms of equipment, in sports like shooting and archery, the equipment is very critical. It's very complicated. It's very expensive. Very often these are imported equipment. So we have to plan very carefully to ensure that the best possible equipment is got to these athletes at an early stage. It takes months and months, sometimes even a year, to get used to it. I remember for me, playing with a new hockey stick was so tough. It took me months to get the right feel of the hockey stick. So you can imagine in a sport like shooting, where a rifle comprises of almost 100 parts, where every millimeter, if a screw is not right here or there, it has an effect in overall performance. So I think speed in support has a big role to play in the entire ecosystem. Uh, Point number 14 that I would like to go to is good balance of training and competition. It's very hard to train continuously without a goal in front of you. And psychologically, it's really challenging. That's one of the problems they're facing right now with the lockdown, because of the uncertainty. Of course, now the new Olympic dates have just been announced, so we know that's going to be on 23rd July 2021. But uncertainty stuff. Also, if an athlete is only training throughout the year without any competitions at all, it's really hard to keep the athlete motivated. Um, so I would say that regular competitions against different type of opposition is very important. That helps you test your mettle against the best athletes in the world. It helps you to play against different opponents under different conditions. Like I mentioned, in boxing, you want to be playing against the top southpaws, top orthodox boxers, taller opponents, shorter opponents. You want opponents who in hockey, you want to play against teams that have different playing styles. So Australia plays totally different from how Germany plays. Both are strong teams, but both play in a very different style. So you want to play against different kinds of opponents. It also sees where you currently stand, where you need to improve. So I think a critical part of a coach and federation's role is to ensure that there's that good mix of training as well as competition. Point number 15, very important: family support. I think I would say that really lucky to be blessed with a lovely family, lovely parents who encouraged me in every respect. I myself came from a very conservative background. Mom was a doctor, dad was an engineer. My two elder brothers were engineers. And sometimes I look back and think that the only reason that I was allowed to play hockey, at that time growing up in the 90s, you had to become a doctor or an engineer. And I think so. My parents were super strict with my eldest brother, and he liked sport, but eventually he became an engineer. The second guy loved sport a lot, especially football, but eventually he became an engineer as well. And by the time the third kid came along, I think my parents allowed me to play hockey, because by that time they were so fed up and not bothered about what I did at all. So that was one of the reasons I could play hockey freely. But jokes apart, my when I was a kid, my dad took me for hockey matches, football matches, and I was so inspired to play hockey and football. I remember seeing a Rovers Cup matches in at Cooperage, watching East Bengal versus Mohammedan Sporting. My dad took me to the Mumbai Hockey Association. I watched Indian Airlines play against BSF in the Bombay Gold Cup finals. So as an 8, 9 year old boy, I was just fascinated with that, and I'm really grateful to my parents. So parents and family have a very critical role to play. I would like to also say over here that there's a fine line between encouraging parents and interfering parents. So, my request to all parents out there is to leave things to the coaches. Encourage your kids, but do not interfere in training. We have to trust the coach. We have to trust the federation. They are professionals. They are experts. They know what's best to the athletes. So please be encouraging parents, but do not be interfering parents. Uh, Uh, Point number 16 is all stakeholders in sport working very closely together. Again, I must point out a brilliant role being played here by Sports Authority of India, DG Sai, Sandeep Pradhan sir, Commander Raj Gopalan, the CEO of Tops, who have played a wonderful role over the last 3 4 years in getting all the stakeholders together in working for the elite athletes in Indian sports, be it Sports Authority of India, the Sports Ministry, the National Sports Federations, various not-for-profit organizations like OGQ, Go Sports, JSW, Lakshya Sports, etc., that are all doing good work. And the good thing is everyone is working in tandem. It's very, very important, because the goal is same. Everyone wants Indian athletes to do well. Everyone wants Indian athletes to win medals for the country, and it's very critical that all stakeholders work together in a good, healthy environment. Point number 17, I would mention here the attitude of athletes. uh, I'll start by giving you examples of great attitude of some of the top athletes, and for me that is one of the biggest reasons why they are champions. Athletes like Mary Kom, Neeraj Chopra, Vinesh Fogart, Mirabai Chanu. I think the hunger, the fire, the desire that they have is unmatched, and that is one of the biggest reason why they are at the level why they are. There are many athletes who are good, many athletes who are extremely good at what they are do, extremely talented, but I think they lack a little bit in focus, discipline, hunger, the ability to come back from defeat. I think these are really challenges that are there, and having the right attitude for athletes is very critical. I'm almost finishing. Just three quick points before I open it out to questions. Is reaching the top versus maintaining consistency at top. Very often they say that reaching the top is easier, but when you actually reach the top, so it may be number one in your junior days, number one in senior days, number one in the world, staying consistently at the top is important, and that requires extra effort to stay there, because there's a big difference in when you are the hunter and as opposed to when you are being the hunted. And I feel that the team working with the athlete, and it might be individual sports, but there's really an army of people working behind the scenes that are very important to continuously plan and implement changes. Point number 19, last couple of points, just your management of the field. For elite athletes, it's not just the dealing with the pressures on the field, but dealing with it's what is equally important is dealing with pressures off the field. I think athletes need to be very smart to know their priorities, know what's important. Today, there are so many activities to deal with, be it media, social media, endorsements, events, travel schedule, visas. So it's very important to plan that very well. We cannot give excuses that there was too much work to do off the field, and so we were not well recovered enough to have to be really fresh for our training sessions and competition. And last is adaptability. Um, Champion athletes, champion teams, they adapt. They adapt to change, they adapt to tough conditions, they adapt to a very dynamic environment. In sport, nothing stays constant. Every player, every team across the world is continuously improving. Sport science is improving, and we have to adapt. And part of the adaptability is actually not complaining and grumbling. That is the biggest lesson I have learned from one of the biggest legends of Indian sport, Prakash Padukone, where he said that when he won the All England title in the 80s, uh, he never complained or grumbled. He didn't even have a proper badminton court to play in. He played in a wedding hall where the roof was a low roof, so he couldn't even toss his serve high while training. But he said that I converted a disadvantage into an advantage because I had to actually serve through the bars of the roof, and it actually helped in improving my accuracy. So he became very accurate, and I really admire Prakash sir, because at that time he didn't have a proper coach. There was no physio, no trainer, no nutritionist, no mental trainer, nothing, and he went to beat the best in the world. So, players out there, you have to learn to adapt. There's no point complaining and grumbling. Yes, we need good facilities, and all stakeholders are trying to their best to ensure that they're the best facilities for our athletes. But for whatever reason, if you don't have something, try to make the best of what you have. I'd just like to quickly summarize by saying, coach, before we open it out to questions and before I scroll to all the questions, sorry, I think there are tons of them. I would like to say that the coach is the most important ingredient in that mix to build Olympic and world champions. Very often we do not have all the elements due to various factors, and the most important is being a resource of funding crunch. But we have to learn to deal with it, always look at priorities, and always try to ensure that there's a healthy working environment for our elite athletes. Thank you very much with that. And with that, I'm going to try and scroll down to the various questions. Uh, that I'm getting. Please give me some time to scroll down from it. Please keep the questions coming, and I'll try to answer whatever is possible. One coach has asked me what should be the volume of training be for junior and senior athletes. I think that really depends on sport to sport. It would depend on also the period that you are away from competition. So when you're quite far away from competition, you want to focus on strength, endurance. While you're closer to competition, you focus on speed and intensity and really sharpness in technique. I think you're working closely with the physical trainer, scientist would be really helpful at that time. Yeah. One viewer asks, "How do you see sports science thriving in India?" Um, I think, like sports psychologists, we definitely need more quality sports scientists in the country, and I think the Sports Authority of India is making a big move to recruit a lot of sports scientists. So, all you sports scientists out there, please apply to Sports Authority of India. We definitely need much more sports scientists out there. We have a lot of scientists in India, but not too many sports scientists. So yeah, that's very important role to play. And like I said, please try your best to also bridge gap between assessments in the lab to actually implementing it on the training ground. Um, one question I've got is, how does the mental states of elite athletes change with the surroundings? I think the good athletes train under like I said, with a very balanced mindset. The good athletes, the really top athletes, do not get too affected. It's very important to stay very equitable and balanced in your mindset, not to get hassled and stressed out under pressure. And that's something I've really learned from someone like Mary Com. Like I said, what makes her so special is that she has no fear of anyone. There are two things that I would like to add over here. That there's one part of things that are in your control. There's a second part of things that are out of your control. What we as athletes and coaches can do is at least look at things that are within your control and do it to your best. So things that are within your control is being disciplined, going for training sessions on time, working very diligently on our fitness, on our nutrition. Those sort of things are all within our control. What is outside our control? Uh, the climate may be too hot, too cold. Sometimes we don't get equipment on time. Sometimes when you go to play a hockey tournament in another country, I remember going to Pakistan to play the India-Pakistan hockey series. There were 50,000 people abusing the Indian hockey team. So it might be hostile environment, hostile crowds. These are things that are out of your control. So don't worry too much about those things. The things that are within your control, try to do those to your best. Um, from one of the viewers, track and field is international exposure very important. Like I spoke on my point on balance in training and competition. Um, uh, it's very important to have that right balance of competition. Now, very often you might not be able to afford international exposure, especially if you're not in the Indian team and you're not being sent by the federation. So, as much as possible, try to have regular competitions. I the general thumb rule is every 3 months, 2 or 3 months, depending on again on the nature of the sport. Try to ensure that there are competitions. Uh, Yes, I'm still looking for some more questions. Just give me a minute as I try and scroll down. Yeah, I think I see lots of coaches logged into this session. So I just want to say a big namaste and thank you to all the coaches out there. I think you are father, guru, mentor, guide, sports psychologist, everything for us. So I think everything we as athletes have achieved so far have been to coaches. So a big namaste, and thank you to all the coaches that are out there. Okay, one good question: how to control negative aggressiveness of a 12-year-old badminton player on court? I think at different levels, different athletes all go through phases, and like I spoke about, I think Shrikant also took the topic on adolescence, and that adolescent age group is a very critical age group where where young athletes are going through physical changes as well as mental and emotional changes. So I think what is important over here is showing empathy to the athletes, uh, uh, trying to ensure that we focus and channelize their energies towards becoming better at their sport. Sometimes being aggressive is okay, but just ensure that the aggression is channeled in the right direction. Roger Federer is the best example, where he was very aggressive as a young player. He broke many tennis rackets, and today he's possibly the best tennis player of all time. Although I must admit, yeah, I'm a Nadal fan, but still I'll acknowledge that Federer is one of the best of all time, and I don't want any questions on this. I don't want to go on a Federer versus Nadal debate over here. Uh, I've got a question saying, are Indian athletes well trained regarding anti-doping? What are steps taken to improve it by SAI, OGQ, Go Sports, DSW, especially with the younger athletes? Rahul, excellent question by you. I think Sports Authority of India, as well as the various not-for-profit organizations, are taking many steps to do it. NADA is also playing an important role, and here we must understand that. Uh, uh, l- Education is the most important part in fighting the evils of anti-doping, and it's not possible to babysit athletes 24/7 to see every single food item, supplements, or medication that they are taking. My request to every single athlete and coach out there is, please consult with your team doctor before taking any food supplement or medication. Do not take anything on your own, even if the coach says आपका endurance के लिए बहुत अच्छा है, आपका strength के लिए बहुत अच्छा है. Please do not take, especially any new medication or supplement. Consult a professional, consult the expert before taking in. And continuous education forums are being held for athletes from different sports from the National Sports Federation to ensure that their athletes are continuously uh, educated on anti-doping. Again, I'm not an expert here, so I would leave that question to the experts. uh, how important is it for athletes to replicate match pressure in training? Like I touched upon my point on training under pressure, very critical. I'll repeat the golden rule: if you cannot do it in training, chances are very high that you will not be able to do it during the match. So coaches out there, especially as we're closer to the tournament, there's no point doing things very slowly, very in a non-pressure environment. Push athletes to the limit. Remember, when we are working with elite athletes, we are always pushing them to the limit every single day, and that line is very fine. Keep pushing them, but ensuring that they don't go over that line and start getting injured as well. So quality sessions is very important. Take regular feedback from the athletes, because for an athlete to come to that level, that means they are extremely smart. And taking that feedback from the athletes, to knowing the challenges that he faces during competition is very critical. I've got a question, interesting question on coaching. Can we produce great coaches like Rick Charlesworth and Roland Altmans? I would say that we already have many good top quality coaches in various sports in India. But like I said, the coach is the most important ingredient. We can't have five quality coaches, 10 quality coaches at every single level, at grassroots level, intermediate level, elite level. The coaches are critical, and we need to be doing more and more coaching education programs. Every state federation, every national federation has to continuously upgrade skills. I would like to say here that Hockey India is, I think, doing an excellent program on upgrading skills coaches, getting more licensed coaches. I know that the All India Football Federation is having very regular licensed coaching programs. Every sport should do this. It's not just enough to have top coaches at the highest level for our elite athletes. If we don't teach our talented kids, the young, when they are 10, 11, 12 years old, we will never get top athletes then. So we have good coaches, but there's still a lot of work to be done to get more and more coaches. A very good question from Mr. Gurdial Singh Bawa. What is the role of proper officiating and judgment in the ecosystem? Yeah, I think that's maybe a point that I have missed about referees, judges, umpires in different sport. I think equally important to ensure in sports like boxing, wrestling, hockey, football, you name it. There are good officials traveling with the team in training camps where they also have regular sessions on the latest rules of different sports. Rules across sports are changing very fast. Scoring systems. If you look at boxing, in the last 4 years itself, they must have changed the scoring pattern 4 times. So it's very important that our athletes and coaches stay updated, because that this is where you can actually get that 1% advantage. If we can, I wouldn't say manipulate the rules to our favor, but use the rules to our favor. Use it in the right positive manner to make improvements in our training. It makes us much better prepared for competition, and it's ensured to have a good. It's very important to have good quality of referees, officials, umpires, etc. Another aspect that I want to talk about is having much more female coaches, female trainers, and physios. 50% of our athletes today are females. From this Tokyo 2020 Olympics onwards, there's a big global push. I'm really happy to see that there's a big global push towards gender equality. India is going to have almost 50% female athletes qualifying for the Tokyo Olympics. I would like to see us really encouraging female coaches, female physios, trainers out there. I'd like to see Sports Authority of India giving more opportunities to female coaches and trainers to be part of the ecosystem. I think with that, I'm going to end the session. I would like to say again a big thank you to everyone. I've really enjoyed speaking to all of you all. I hope you all enjoyed the session. Please do give your feedback to Sports Authority of India and myself. Thank you, everyone. God bless, and hope all of you all can play a very important role in improving our the ecosystem for sports in the country. Thank, Thanks everyone. Thank you. My daughter here would just like to say hi to everyone. So she's going to turn 6 in a month. So she's a budding football player. She doesn't like my sport, hockey, too much, but she loves all other sports. So bye everybody, and all the best, and God bless. Thanks. Take care. Bye.